Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn. Hey, hey, it is the first day of April. Spring is here. I can feel it. I feel the energy, right, Miri? It's
I love
like,
it. I love
whew,
spring. I
I
absolutely
love
love
spring
spring.
too.
So
And I,
nice.
I just, I needed it. Like I was feeling it in March, February a bit. I think everybody was like, "Oh, there's been a lot of shit going on." So we're here. We're April 1st, and it's
We're
gonna
here.
be. We're here, and I
Wait,
have.
unpopular opinion. It's not April Fool's, it's April's 1st.
That's it. Like I'm not doing the
Let's
fool
just
thing because we got
let's just
nothing to fool today.
we're not fooling anybody today. We're having real conversations.
No,
No foolish
yeah,
conversations.
no April Fools. The joke's on you. You got two fierce lady bosses here today, and we are going to talk about branding and storytelling and just all of the things. If you are listening right now, say hello. Let us know where you're listening in from, watching. Bring those questions
Sunshine.
in.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, I'm so pumped. I met Miri at Microsoft. So from my Microsoft days, and we've kept in touch. She's such an inspiration to me. I look at her and say, I want to be like that,
Oh,
right? I want to write that book. I want to be on the stages. It's true, Miri. I love what you're up to. I love what you're
thank
doing.
you.
So tell first a little bit about what are you doing at Microsoft, a little bit
Yeah.
about you, and then we'll get into the topic of storytelling, the future of storytelling.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Such a great honor to be here. Thanks for having me. Love the sunshine. Yes, sunshine helps so much. I should not lie. I'm actually, I live in Florida, so it's the Sunshine State, and so we have sunshine every day. But I know what it is to not have sunshine because I also lived in Seattle, so I'm like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand. I understand. So sending sunshine to everyone. I actually work right now at Microsoft Digital as a storyteller for future of work. Basically, that's fancy title for we're telling stories about the things that matter today and tomorrow. I mean, things around hybrid work, employee engagement, customer zero, how our products are doing, enabling these innovations in a space that, and I know we're going to get into that later, but really just the themes that we're seeing today, empathy, inclusion, with things that matter to humans today. Those stories that are not just technical stories, they are technical, but they're also human in essence, and how these two combine to build a brand, to talk about brand loyalty and engagement. So we look like
Amazing.
twins.
Yeah.
See,
I know.
I actually was. Where's your red lipstick, twin
Girl,
sister?
I know today I don't have my red on. It's more pink. Like I messed up. I
Wait,
messed
I want
up.
to know which one is the evil twin. I would say me
You're
because I'm
just like
wearing. I'm the
you're my
dark one. Look at
Latina. Like if I was Latina, like
I'm your
here,
shadow.
yeah, this would be my like perfect. Here's my soul sister right here. Oh, look, Brian's here too. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Okay, so twinsy. Um,
Yay.
So let's talk a little bit about storytelling
Yeah.
because you wrote a book around brand storytelling, putting customers sort of at the heart of that.
Yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit about the way in which you look at storytelling because I work with a lot of people on personal branding and bringing
Yeah.
their content and bringing their narrative to life on LinkedIn. And the story piece, Mary, is one of the hardest things to do.
It is. It is.
It's one of the
Um,
hardest things to do. So tell us, what the
yeah. So
heck
the
is
book
it?
is
What do you do?
the book is actually about that because there is so much
Perfect.
confusion and a lot of questions around what is storytelling. How do I even get started? Do I just tell a story? Is that what storytelling is for branding? Yes and no. There's so much to unpack there. And to be honest, the book is my story about how I came into the space, being a communicator, being a marketer, into the engineering space, not being an engineer at Microsoft, and having to tell the stories of digital transformation. And I was like, oh, I was stuck, completely stuck. And so for me as well, even as a communicator and a content creator, it was not easy. So I can imagine for other people, that are not in the field. And so for me, I was finishing my master's, and I was doing a UX and design thinking angle to communications. And I took for my capstone, I took the project of taking the design thinking principles and then applying it to storytelling. And that's when it became real to me. Okay, the 5 steps of storytelling in the book really talks about those 5 tips, how to using design thinking principle. And it starts with empathy, which back then was not a thing. We were not talking about empathy.
Yeah.
Leading with empathy was not a thing. Using empathy or building empathy as a skill set was not a thing. So it actually started with me embarking on that journey. And to me, to answer your question succinctly, For me, storytelling is an emotional transfer of information, of data, of facts, of content. It's really being able to transfer all of that, whatever message you have, emotionally to your audience through a character, plot, and conclusion. So there's many ways of the how to, but I think the most important thing is storytelling is not just telling stories, is designing them. So we have to take the approach to designing stories more than just talking and telling stories.
Yes. Okay. Are you going to tell us like a few steps and ways to start developing that plot?
Yes, Patty, cohesion. That's right. Cohesion to storytelling. I love that word. Cohesion is a great word. It's really about the end-to-end storyline. So let's actually unpack stories. Stories have three ways that it actually, what I call the skeleton of the story, that forms up a story. The first one is the story elements: your character, your plot, and conclusion. If it doesn't have those three, it's not a story. So you have to make sure it's got a character, plot, and conclusion in the end-to-end process. The second one is story structure. It's basically what we call the story arc. That's what you've seen that has a little kind of like it's like almost like a triangle shape of exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and then the conclusion. That what's really interesting about that is that it doesn't have to follow that arc specifically. There's many ways to tell a story. You can start with the climax, you can start with the conclusion, and it really is up to you to design it in the way that you know your customer, your clients, your audience will consume it best. So that structure is follows that arc, and it has to have all of those elements. What we call scene one, scene two, scene three. So you have to really think about what is scene one, what is my exposition. If my audience is an expert in what I'm going to talk about, do I really need to have a long exposition and expose a lot of context and history? Maybe not. You can be very succinct. So really thinking through each stage with empathy towards your audience. So that's the story structure, and then the story attributes is what I call the story persona in a context of UX. In UX, you think of product and the product persona as a relationship that the user has with the product. Well, same thing here. In storytelling, you have to think of your story as a product. You're landing something, you're producing, designing something for an audience, and they're going to grab it and use it for themselves. And so if you look at it from that approach, what is that personality? What is the persona that you're giving? What are the visual elements that you're employing? What are the different ways that are going to, the formats you're going to use to tell the story? Will it be a written form? Will it be video? Should it be on TikTok? These are all the questions you get to ask, and how to dress it up in the end for the personality or the persona of the story. So three ways that we have to start with: defining the character, the plot, the conclusion, defining the structure, the story arc, and then adding the attributes of the story. So lots of stuff that are happening, not just telling stories. That's
Ooh.
actually it.
Okay.
Did you
This
catch
is
that?
okay. Did everyone catch it? Go.
Good. Let's go.
We're
We have
good.
an
We're
hour.
good.
I'm ready to just unpack. Let's
Like,
go.
we're ready. Okay. Okay. So I heard so many things. One thing that as you were talking, I heard a lot about: who are you talking to? Are you talking to experts that already know everything about, like, if I'm talking to branding
Yes.
people,
Yes.
marketing people versus healthcare employees,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
so the audience piece is super important. Miri, when you are talking to people that are less acquainted with your
Mhm.
expertise and skill set,
Yeah.
how do you structure?
A great storyteller will know how to conjure emotion with the simplest form. You don't have to use big words. You don't have to use big
Mhm.
elements. You will be able to, and it's a practice. We all get to be storytellers. We all get to practice. It's a design approach. Thank you, Patty. It's designing. So when we become designers of a story and you practice and practice and practice, it'll become, it's going to be that moment of going, okay, I have a lot to say. And if I can, I just pack it in one slide? Can I pack it in one message, in one tweet? If you're able to do that concisely and in a simple form, you've mastered the art of
Mm.
storytelling, because you don't have to say a whole lot to unpack that emotion with just a few sentences, and then you can deliver more as you wish. But really think of brand storytelling as the hook to the rest of what you're going to present. If you have a lot of data to showcase to your audience, if you have a lot of extra history that you have to give in background, absolutely, by all means, I'm not saying use one sentence, but the sentence will be that hook of that one key takeaway, that if they walked away with one thing, what would that be? It's as a storyteller, that's where you want to get to that point. So how
Yeah.
succinct can you be? How simple can you be in explaining the concepts? It's in any space, in finance, in any sector. It's hard, but it's not impossible, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I feel like some of the, hey, Sam, hey, Patty, I feel like some of the best ways to simplify too is analogies, examples, like dumbing things down to everyday experiences that we have.
Mhm.
Do you use that tactic a lot?
All the time, all the time. So I think one of the best hacks to storytelling is to have the customer, the audience, your audience, see themselves in that story. The more that you can present characters that they can connect with, immediately they're going to go, okay, this is about me. This has got something to do with me. I need to stick around. I need to know what's happening and get curious. Create that curiosity, spark that element of like, what's next? As humans, we're all trying to find out. Right now, all the audience is like, what are they going to say next? Right? They're trying to
Yeah.
figure out, and so if we give it all away, then the brain just, we have no attention span now, none left, right? So I'm already
Yeah.
scrolling to my next feed. So it's really about being able to hook them with something that they know. First of all, it's for them and how they see themselves in the story, and then you can begin to unpack it, and now they're emotionally invested and connected to the rest of the story. So use it as a hook and say, this is about you, right? How can you make it about them? It's just, it's nothing new. Put the customer at the center of your story. That's all it is. And so if you do that instead of your brand or your product or your marketing approach or your whatever it is that's yours, instead of yours, use that as a platform to put them at the center, make the story about them, and then they're gonna hook.
So this is interesting because my brain is always thinking, now it has, right? Because I don't do as much company branding anymore, Mary.
Right,
That was my
right.
sole focus
I
for 10
know,
years,
I
right? Was
know.
company branding, all of that. Now I believe in the most important thing is our personal brands because it's about the people. People buy from other people hire from other people. And so when you're storytelling as Miri,
Yeah,
you're on stage
yeah.
versus telling Microsoft, let's say, in the future of work,
Hmm.
there's a difference, right?
There is.
The question is there a difference? Because
There is.
okay, I think so too. You said put the customers right at the center. But if
Yeah.
I'm telling about Rachel B. Lee or Miri, what is your perspective on that when you're storytelling about you, your experiences, your mindset?
Yeah, I want to call out exactly what Christine is mentioning here. Talk about impressions. The impression of the story is it's really part of that hook. It's that emotional connection that you're going to set. It's the setting. If you're able to immediately grab someone, they're going to stick. They're going to stick around. They're going to learn more. And that applies exactly. It's a great answer to what you just asked, Rachel. So I want to say, just simple. At Microsoft, I work for Microsoft, you work for Microsoft. People want to know what Microsoft is doing, but not what Microsoft
Right.
is doing, but Miri from Microsoft is doing. Who is Miri? What is she doing? What is she about? And so the more I let myself be Miri, I have more influence over people because they see me as a human. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a spouse, I'm a friend, I'm a worker. I'm all these layers of person that I am with all my intersectionality. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Venezuela. I cook, I don't cook, I eat, whatever, all the things that we are at the human level. And so that is what people get curious about and want to know about. So if I go to stage and I present as Miri from Microsoft, okay, I'm only showing that one layer of what I am, Miri from Microsoft with my credentials at Microsoft. If I show up with Miri as a human, the hook is there might be something about Miri that I can connect with, and I want to know what that is, and I'm getting curious. And so everybody right now listening, that's exactly what they're doing. Psychology is, what is Miri going to say? What is Rachel going to say that I can agree with, that I can connect with? That is the human element of story, and that's why that emotional piece of story is consequential. If we don't align to that emotional piece, that human connectedness piece, then we lose the opportunity. It's just a story. Yes, it has a character, plot, conclusion, but it doesn't have a space where you can go, oh, I can relate. And so we want to relate. We want, humanizing the brand is no longer talking like a human. Let me just give you some of the trends that are happening in 2022 brand storytelling. The brand voice, the core values, and the stance of a brand are now seen as an entity. Brands are no longer required to or expected to have a brand mission and a set of values that sit nicely on your website. If you're not actively showcasing them at the human level, you have lost all of your stance. You have lost your voice in society. What does that look like? If a
Heard it
brand
here,
says,
folks. You heard
let's
it
go.
here. Mic drop, mic drop. I say this shit, Mary, and I'm like, nobody listens. She
Oh,
said
listen,
it.
please listen. So, a brand is saying, yeah, we're inclusive in nature. Absolutely, we're inclusive. Let's talk about what happened, during Women's History Month. I'm obviously a huge proponent of celebrating women and women histories. There was a bot that came out on Twitter. I don't know if you saw the feed, but on Women's History Month, this bot that went on Twitter began to actually reply to all of the companies that were, doing the brand storytelling thing and saying, oh, we love and support women, and we love women and we promote women and blah blah blah. And the bot would reply and say, okay, with data, okay, when was the last time you showed the wage gap, or what you pay your women versus men? The last report we see is this one. So just facts, just facts. And then all of a sudden, the media storm has started happening. It went viral. Of course, it started thinking UK. If you're talking about something in your stories as a brand storytelling, and you're not showcasing it, you're going to get called out immediately. So how do you humanize the brand? Go back to those core values and ensure that you're humanizing those core values at the brand storytelling level. It's not just telling the story, it's living the story as well, especially because today the second trend is employee experience. Right now, we're seeing a whole lot of that coming out of the great reshuffle, the great resignation. We're talking about how employees are telling the brand story. So it's not just the brand telling the story. The people that work at the brand are talking about the brand. And so you have to make sure that the stories align, because they're also storytellers of your brand.
Yeah,
Can I go home now?
I think so. I'm like, okay.
I think
First,
I talked too much.
I'm like, okay. Like, so, I mean, the employee experience thing is huge. Like, I think
Huge,
this one is huge
huge.
because, and I've been talking a lot more about this as I've unleashed from corporate, Miri. My hands are not tied anymore, right?
I know. Do it, girl. You're here. This is your
When
space.
your hands aren't tied and you are
Mhm.
an outsider looking in,
Yeah.
you know, it's incredible how the working professionals do not feel empowered to tell their story, not only on behalf of the company, like forget even being able to talk about what the company does, but
Yeah.
about their relationship with the company, the relationship to themselves
Yes.
and their life and their career. That employee experience that you're talking about
Yeah.
is, it has to be the most important thing, I think, for companies in 2022 and beyond. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. So when we think about employee experience today, and I've done some research in that space, right? Things like wellness and empathy and inclusion come to mind. They come from different layers of how the brand is delivering those experiences and what the employee is expecting of that experience. We have literally, I feel that what the pandemic did for us is awaken in us. We were, all of us, I think we were living in this kind of pseudo semi autopilot state of like, you wake up, you go to work, you don't think about it, you come home and you do your life. And this whole thing just, I mean, just so much tragedy wakes us up and go, wait, what am I doing? Am I where I
Yeah.
want to be? Am I working for where I want to work? Like, it's just all questions that we needed to have with ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Authenticity, culture, I love those words. That's where it begins to unfold and go, okay, do my core values align to the company's core values, that company that I'm working for? And if they don't, do I want to be there? And
Yeah.
so when it comes to brand storytelling, back to the values that you're talking about in your brand story, the expectation in 2022 and beyond is that if you set out to talk about, we're inclusive, we are, socially conscious, we are environmentally conscious, that is actually resonating with the employees who are telling the story for you now, because it's an open forum. We are using social media, we're using all the channels, and we're talking about the companies we're working for. So the brand doesn't have all the control that it thought it had before. It doesn't have it anymore in terms of brand storytelling, so it has to align. Yes, you have the power of talking about your brand and your core values, but also knowing that there's other people that are part of your brand talking about the same story, and those are your employees, and those are your storytellers. Those are today's storytellers. I talk about that in my book, actually. Before the pandemic, I talked about how
Yeah.
your best storytellers are your employees, and I said, build an army of employees that can tell your story. Give them the solutions, give them the resources, tell them the story so they can, pack and go tell the stories. Because if you don't, they're still going to do it, but they're not going to consider the brand as you think they might. And so it's now a partnership relationship, you and the
Yeah.
brand, and it's a mutual relationship. when it comes to brand storytelling. And so empower your employees. That's a big deal. Give them the resources. Think of it as a reimagined communications approach, marketing communications plan, where you consider them and say, hey, here's how we're going to give you the assets of our brand. Here's how we're going to give you what our story looks like. Make it yours. It's part of your story. Stories are live, right? So once they go out there, you make it yours. We're all consuming content differently. I would argue, we always say content is king. I would say engagement is king today. Experience is king today. And so we have to consider how the content drives that experience.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. I mean, content, there's too much content. It's nearly impossible to consume. And so to your point, I mean, it really is about engagement. But let's talk about that for a second.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm seeing some of my friends here,
Yeah.
Randy and Isabel and Pete, and really appreciate y'all for being here. Michelle Larson,
Here.
thank you so much. So cool to have you guys hanging with us. Um, the people that are listening today are also individual brands, Miri.
Okay.
So, and a lot of the things that I hear is, how
Hmm.
do I start to share my voice, whether I work for a company or I don't work for a company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's these opportunities where you're on video or you're on a stage, but a lot of it is on social media, right? How do I
Yes.
post on LinkedIn or
Yeah.
Instagram? And then
Yeah.
there's the whole other component if I'm on a Zoom or whatever the case is.
Sure. Sure.
For you, Miri, I mean, you've been working your brand, working the shit out of your brand for several years now.
Yeah.
Um, how did you start to share your voice? Because it comes for you, you've been very open and honest.
I
You've been
have
very
been.
vulnerable,
I have been.
going through what you're experiencing right now with breast cancer and getting it out of you. Very vulnerable. You just
Yeah.
laid it out there. And I remember your picture, you put like no makeup on and you just laid it to the
Yeah.
world. And you said,
Yeah.
this is my journey right now. And I just
Yep.
thought that was so beautiful, right? It was so beautiful. It was so raw. And you are working for a company like Microsoft with
Yeah.
hundreds of that, right? So talk
Yeah.
a little bit, Miri, for my lady bosses here today, and then and not just the women, all of the people listening. How did you start to bring that vulnerability, that honesty into how you're producing content on social media?
Yeah, Rachel, thank you. Thank you for that. One of the biggest things that I learned in my own trajectory is how important authenticity was for me. And that fine line of what my personal core values are, how I'm going to go do life and work, and how that aligns to everything that I do and who I do it with, the choices that I make. I can tell you honestly, I've had a lot of opportunities with brands wanting to pay me for branded content on my Instagram, and I say no to all of them. No, not just because it's not, to me, it doesn't align with my values. And so it's really a self contract that I made. And I think opportunity for all of us to do that, to create a contract with yourself of how you're going to go do life based on your life mission, based on your life purpose, and sticking through that. That's basically what keeps the storyline authentic throughout and makes you make those decisions that when you evaluate, why will I post something, why will I do something, why will I partner with such a brand, that's your why, and you go back to that. You don't deviate from that. And that keeps it authentic, that keeps it genuine, and it keeps you grounded as well, I believe. And so I've been doing this for 10 years, very slowly, by the way. I didn't set out to go be an influencer or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to give myself a platform and a voice as a Latina woman in tech, and enable other women to do that. That's my target audience, young women in tech. I call them my girls. And based on that mission, I just went out and did my thing, and it was incredible to see that people aligned to it, or were inspired by it, or connected to it. And so it was not inconsequential. And I thought, wow, I'm a regular, ordinary person. If we can all do this, we all learn from each other, and what a beautiful thing that is. And that's why I love storytelling, is because stories teach us about each other. Stories teach us about each other's values, each other's uh, backgrounds, and our biases. And so we all get to talk about how we see things. I mean, I posted about the Will Smith thing. I got curious about how people are thinking about it. It's not right or wrong. It's just how we are, how we all see things. And that's the beauty of who we are as people, as humans, is that we bring to the table that diversity of thought, and to be able to tell and share that is important. So branding has been to me that platform. My personal brand, in the decision I made to share layers of me and stories of me, have been with that purpose. And it doesn't serve everybody. I think everybody has their own purpose with their personal brand, and
Yeah.
that's okay. For me, it has served me in the way that I have been able to connect with people like you, with everyone, and really use my stories that, to me, may be ordinary or not even, powerful, but to them it is, because of the learning. And I find so many relatable points to people. I mean, you and I were just talking, in the green room about breast cancer, and how that touches so many people. You have no idea how many women and men, because that also affects
Yeah.
men, by the way, came to me and said, "Miri, I'm going through this. My wife is going through this." And I was like, and nobody. It's isolating at some point. Yeah, I went out and I was raw and I talked about it, just to let you know you're not alone, and we're all here. We're all human. We all have human condition. Let's move away from that superhuman mentality. And I think the pandemic also helped us think about that, and that authenticity, that inclusion of thought of, hey, there's human condition happening all around, and it's okay that we integrate it as part of our lives, because it is part of who we are. We're not, it's not Miri here and Miri here. It's all of Miri, all coming, all encompassing of who I am. So my brand and my brand journey has been about that. And I encourage everyone to think about why you would do that, your why first, and who do you want to serve with that brand. Because if you do
Mhm.
it for yourself, yeah, it'll get you somewhere. That's not noble, though. I mean, everybody does stuff for themselves. But if
Yeah.
you leverage your brand for other people, the space that you're doing right now, bringing me here, using your letting me borrow your audience, to talk about myself, that gets to people, that enables people, that inspires people. Isn't that what we want to do, right?
100%. I This idea of what is your why and how can you serve, what you just said.
Hmm.
And that is at the essence of brand strategy, both at a company and personal brand, right?
Correct.
Your
Correct.
brand is the company's DNA, truly the DNA, the mission, the values, and then it is also our DNA, right? As a personal brand, it's truly. And I have to say, Miri, the more, because I have been on this journey, I feel like I'm where you were at, maybe, I don't know, 5 or whatever years ago, different path, right? But in
Yeah,
terms of
we all have.
really starting to share my voice over the last year,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
more that I have figured out what my why is and how I can serve, and the more vulnerable that I am, the more I put myself out there and I say the things that aren't comfortable,
Mm,
same thing. People start to resonate more.
yeah.
Oh, you said this, Rachel. Like, and then it encourages me to say more. It's
Yes.
like
Yes.
this give and take of just
Right.
being human,
It's
being
being human.
human.
It's being
And
human.
it's the most beautiful
It's
part.
beautiful. It's so
It is.
beautiful. Yeah.
It is.
It is.
We get to do the best things. I mean, I think storytelling, what you do, what you advocate for, is the epicenter of everything that marketing and branding and really human connection is today. That's it.
It is. To me, when I know we talked about democratizing storytelling. What I mean by that, and especially because the reason didn't set out to write a book. It wasn't one of my, like, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to write a book. That was not one of my things. In fact, I actually rejected the notion to the publisher like 3 times. They came at me. I was like, no thanks, I don't have time. No thanks, it's not the time. I don't think it's ever a good time to write a book. But finally, I gave in, and it was good. It was a great thing. But my why to writing the book was, okay, why would I do this? And it was democratizing storytelling. And this is why, because I grew up with a family of storytellers. My parents are, I'm a preacher's kid. I always saw people that had that talent and go, wow, I was just wowed by people that could speak so well and get on a stage and, move masses and be charismatic. And I left that always in my mind to politicians and preachers and, big brands and personal brands, and that are influencers. And then I thought, wait a minute, no, we all have the cognitive ability to tell a good story. We go home, we talk about it, we have a beer with our friends, and we tell stories, and why don't we just hone into that very, very powerful thing that's already inside us, that we are gifted with, all of us are gifted with, and bring that to the workspace. So wherever you are in whatever sector, whatever industry, whatever space of your career, you have it. It's inside you, and all you have to do is activate the need to really change the scope of how you talk to people, the format, and tell it in story form. And it changes everything. It starts with that empathy, right? Who are you talking to? Why are you asking that question, getting them curious? Why is that important to deliver that message? Why do they need to hear that? And get them curious with your stories, and then hook them, with that, and they will be hooked emotionally. Absolutely, all of us are absolutely gifted. And Michelle says, I think in sharing a story, you have to overcome the fear to talk about it. It took some time for me personally. It took some time for me personally getting to that point of sharing. That's right. So there's two pieces to storytelling. There's designing the stories and then actually telling the stories. And there's two skill sets, if you will. Delivering the story is another way that you tell the story. So unpacking this is when you become a storyteller, when you decide to become a storyteller or practice storytelling. Begin with practicing the designing of it first, because that before you go tell the story where to go, right? Create that mission around the story. Who are you dedicating that story to? What is it going to make them feel? What is it going to help them do? And then the format of how the story is going to be told. And granted, a lot of us are not great communicators. I wasn't. I was someone who always thought about my accent. I don't enunciate words sometimes because English is my second language. All the barriers and all the things that always happen to all of us. But it is practice. So practice in front of a camera, practice in front of your friends, tell a story in front of the mirror. And the more you do this, the better you get at it. None of us are born with all the gifted ideas, but we do have it in us. And so it is important. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. It does take time, but if you don't do it, then you're not going to get anywhere. So take time. And when I started 6 years ago, specifically in storytelling, over 6 years ago, I took 2 hours out of my Friday as focus hours to just dedicate to storytelling, to do the researching, to understand, to practice, to learn, to train. There's hard skills and soft skills that you employ in this. There's communication hard skills, such as the psychology of communication. So there's so much to unpack in levels of storytelling, and it's all available. I mean, just Google it, right? Bing it, it's there. So it's all free too. LinkedIn has many resources, and I'm sure follow Rachel. She's got a lot of resources on that too. So
it's very kind. Oh, Miri. Well, I couldn't really imagine a better way to kick off spring in April on my LinkedIn Live. You are a gift to have here. I hope that whoever listens to this will reach out to Miri. The book, Brand Storytelling, you could buy it on Amazon. We'll drop the link after this. Thank you.
yeah,
Buy it
thanks.
in most places, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll drop the link for anybody that wants to check it out. And that's it for today.
I didn't realize how much we look alike. Everybody's talking about how we're twins. We should
No,
you
I'm
should
like,
really we should have dressed up like we should
no,
have
now
like
that we
arranged our
know,
wardrobe. Now that we know,
now that we
right?
know
Like
there's a thing, I
you're
added
my
some more
twin.
blonde to my hair. And I think, yeah, there's like a lot.
That's
And I
what
think
it
that's like, and then I
is.
got the waves in today for you. I
Uh-huh.
was like, I'm
I
going to put some
love it.
curls in for Miri.
Perfect. Perfect. It works. It works. I love it. I let's do this again.
We're gonna do it again. We're definitely gonna twin out for
Excellent.
sure.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for everybody joining. I'm gonna be
Yes.
back on April 22nd with Grace Gong. She's one of the LinkedIn top voices
Ooh.
in finance. She talks about how to be a VC. Actually, she's young and fiery and amazing. So, bringing in all the heat for April. Miri, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful start to your April, and we'll see you soon.
Hi everyone. Thanks for sharing.